could you see Troy Weaver trading the fifth pick? Would trading the fifth pick for DeAndre Hunter or a player of his caliber be a mistake? I think it was James Edwards that talked about this in one of his athletic articles recently, where he had mentioned that there's a possibility that the Pistons trade the fifth pick. He had mentioned DeAndre Hunter. I don't know if he meant like just trade the fifth pick straight up for DeAndre Hunter to Atlanta. I hate that pick. Like, I would rather just roll with the drafted guy at 5 than trading for DeAndre Hunter. But what are your thoughts on this, man? Could you see Troy Weaver trading the pick?
Yeah, I had read that article. I know I did see DeAndre Hunter in there. I even saw OG Anunoby, who I think you do remember. He was probably one of the most, targeted guys during the trading deadline because he was a wing that, a lot of teams wanted. I could see the Pistons trading the pick if they're at 5. Just because, do you really get excited for a Cam Whitmore? Do you really get excited for a Jarace Walker? I personally could see the Thompson twins going 3-4. I that's how highly I think of them, and I think a lot of people, once they, get past the overtime elite highlights, they'll see that they're talented players, kind of like how Shaedon Sharpe was viewed last year, if you do remember. Like, a lot of people, it's like, oh, hey, he only played, high school ball. He's not that good of a player. Well, he was a pretty damn good player. Getting to your question, could I see, Troy trading the pick? Only if it's at 5 and, the offer's right. I mean, I'm not trading, the 5th pick for a C+ player. I mean, unless I'm getting a B+ player, then I would consider it.
So I was looking up some trade packages that you could potentially do, and Brandon Ingram potentially for the 5th pick. I know we were talking about this one time, but I need a guy that is a potential all-star player, with the 5th pick, man. Like, I just need a guy that I'm not going to worry about. Like DeAndre Hunter, there's still so many questions about his game. He disappears a lot for the Atlanta Hawks, and if you're disappearing for him, why would we trade a 5th pick? Like, is he – I don't know. So, like, I looked up Brandon Ingram. You could trade Bojan, the 5th pick, and probably Marvin Bagley. Obviously, this is in our favor, but I don't see New Orleans doing this at all either. Mm-hmm. But that's the type of player I want for the 5th pick. I've also talked about Keldon Johnson. There's a couple trades that you could do to bring him in for the 5th pick. I would not be disappointed with that. But that's kind of the range of player that I'm looking for. Anywhere from like a Keldon Johnson, a guy still in his early 20s, to a guy in his mid to late 20s, like a Brandon Ingram, that is just, has so far had a pretty good NBA career, has already made an all-star appearance, but still looks like there's a little bit more to go. Because it's the 5th pick, man. We can't be devaluing that. There's still a lot of value to be had with the 5th pick. But if it's for DeAndre Hunter, I'm saying pass on that trade and just taking my chances in the draft with that pick. But
yeah, like if you would have, let's say we don't get Jaden Ivey and like we fell really far, then I would say the Pistons would probably keep the 5th pick. But
yeah,
reading all these articles from these beat reporters, they keep saying that the Pistons want to be more competitive. They want to win more than 20 games. So for me, I think they're on the phone with Toronto seeing who's available, because Toronto basically is having a fire sale right now. They're saying everyone but Scotty Barnes is available. You can have anybody but Scotty Barnes. So maybe they have the 5th pick. Maybe they're trying to put a package together to get an OG Anunoby, which to me, that would be a dream scenario. To me, I think OG is on par with the Brandon Ingram. I think he's better than Keldon Johnson. I think you insert him into a Detroit Pistons lineup, you're going to have a 3-and-D wing that can basically guard 4 positions. But to me, that would be a dream scenario if the Pistons could land an OG Anunoby. It probably doesn't happen. He probably goes to a team like, I don't know. I could see him going to the Kings. I don't know why, because they just got bounced out by Steph Curry. And that they're probably going to want to get better. But to me, like, that's the only type of player that I would actually consider. And I don't know if the Raptors would be that high on the 5th pick. Because to me, I think the Raptors just need to blow it up and rebuild personally. It looks like they're going to try to retool and just try to push for the playoffs. They're going to pull a Washington, and I don't really understand why. You just had your head coach quit, and no one wants to take that job. Even Udoka said he didn't want the job. So, I mean, it's kind of a red flag when, a primetime head coaching candidate basically says, I don't want the job.
But don't you think like a guy like OG Anunoby could be available because this is such a deep draft? Like, I mean, we're talking. I mean, didn't weren't we talking like basically at one point picks 4 through 7 or 4 through 8 could go in any order? Basically, we kind of know who the top three guys are already. And
Uh, I mean, you could have a debate who the top three guys are right now. I don't think it's Victor Scoot and Brandon Miller. I could see one of the Thompson brothers going three.
I don't know. We'll see.
They're nice, man, but um, honestly, man, like Toronto, I would keep an eye on if I'm a Piston fan because Toronto has some pretty young, nice pieces. I even see Siakam getting dealt because there's a lot of money left on his deal. I think he's got maybe 2 or 3 years, but he's a win now player. I don't know if the Pistons are ready for a player like a Siakam, like a win now player, but to me personally, I just I can't see the Pistons being satisfied with keeping a fifth pick. I mean, adding another young player, I don't. Yeah, like potentially, like oh, we're getting another young prospect that that sells to the franchise or the franchise to the fans. I personally think the Pistons they want to get into the play and they don't want to look from the outside. They don't want to be watching all these playoffs come April. They know their season's over. We actually want to be playing meaningful basketball in March, not having an injury report longer than a football field. Like they want to play meaningful basketball, and I think if you have the fifth pick, I wouldn't be surprised if they traded it either. I know James Edwards has been preaching that for a couple of months, and I 100% agree with them.
Yeah, but again, like I just didn't like the trade scenario of DeAndre Hunter. I do not think I would rather keep the fifth pick if he's the only guy that's available. I mean, I'm sure pretty much every team in the NBA has some type of player that they could trade and be willing to trade for the fifth pick. Because one, this is a deep draft class, but also even if you're like a contender and you can add a fifth pick, you know what I'm saying? I mean, I guess a lot of teams wouldn't want to do that. But there's a lot of teams out there that would be picking up the phone. I just think DeAndre Hunter, that's a disservice to your team. I don't know how he makes the team better right away. Like if you're really trying to get into the playoffs and make a push, that fifth pick needs to you need to get like you were saying, you need to get a B plus type of player, man. Someone that's in that tier, Like that's what you have to get. And DeAndre Hunter is not that. That's pretty much why I wanted to bring up the topic because like I saw his name in there and I was super confused. And I'm like, what am I missing with DeAndre Hunter? Like I don't know what I'm missing, but
I mean,
yeah,
he's a great player. Don't get it twisted, but I think he's not really a player where you could plug him into a Detroit Pistons roster and you're like, wow, that's an all-star. You know what I mean? Like,
yeah,
possibly maybe do a sign and trade with Portland for the fifth pick. Who knows what Portland's going to do? They want to keep Dame happy. Maybe they trade Dame. Maybe Jeremy Grant's back on the Pistons. You never really know. Or maybe you go for an Anthony Simons or something like that. Like, there's so many teams this summer that I would keep my eye on. Toronto and Portland would be probably 1 and 2 on the top of my board because something's going to happen with Dame, whether he gets traded to a team like Philly or they do a 3-team trade. Maybe the Pistons can get involved in that, but you never really know, man. There's a lot of teams that got bounced or didn't make the playoffs that the Pistons could, use their cap space in trades and not actually go after anyone in free agency. You never really know. Troy hasn't really been a guy to, splurge in free agency. He's always kind of used his cap space with trades. So if I'm a Piston fan, I would definitely look in the trade market for, the $28 million of cap that we do actually have.
Man, I wish there were more rumors of guys coming to Detroit, Like, it'd be kind of cool right now just to get a rumor of, like, Jaylen Brown being interested in being traded to the Detroit Pistons. Like, someone like a Jaylen Brown, I would love him for the fifth pick. I doubt Boston does that, but, man, that would be incredible.
Houston might get him, though.
Yeah, well, I mean, you're giving up Jalen Green. He's kind of proven in the NBA already, which that kind of surprised me, too, already, like, wanting to dump Jalen Green, but – I get it, I guess. If you got a chance to add Jaylen Brown, why not? But I'm in the school of thought that the Pistons keep the fifth pick unless there's I don't want to say a Godfather type offer, but unless you're getting like an all-star type player that's going to move the needle in the win column, I don't expect this pick to be traded.